Hello and welcome to Talk with Jo, where it's all about inspiring stories. I keep saying that everyone is important, everyone has a story to tell, and everyone's story is important. And joining me on the show today is one of the most brilliant people or young people Kenya, has birthed. He's called Tom Osborn. He describes himself in many different ways, man. He says he's an entrepreneur, he's a community mobilizer, and he's
Research scientist.
and a research scientist. Tom, so good to see you, man.
Good to see you, long time.
Long time, my man.
Yeah.
It's good to see you. How have you been?
I've been good, I think the first time we met was a few years ago in
Yeah, 2015.
Amsterdam,
That's
attending a boot camp.
Yeah.
Since then, I went to uni for a while, then I'm now back to Kenya.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing well, great to be back, and great to just see all like the wonderful energy going on
Yeah.
in the country.
I've always done, all my interviews. I never like have my tab or my phone or something. But for you, I had to bring my tab. Because
I
if you're a
hope you only have
if you're a research
big
scientist,
question there.
I must be sure,
Yeah.
with all the content that we're talking about. But anyway, we just want to get to hear your story, man.
Thank you.
Like, where were you born? Which family are you? Tell me a bit about your family, like your background. Just want to hear your story. Because at Talk with Joyo, what we do is we just get into people's worlds, get to hear their story, and hope to inspire someone through the conversation that we have. I know we'll talk about so many things, all the different things about your entrepreneurship stuff you're doing, your research work, and even what you're doing currently. We'll talk about it. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I agree with you. I think what you're doing is really important because before you become anyone, you are first a person, right? Before you're
That's
like a producer or an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
etc. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm from Migori County. That's in western Kenya.
yeah.
I was born in a small village called Nyabera, which is next to Awendo. That's on
Okay.
the Kisii Migori road, as if you're going to Tanzania.
Yeah.
When a family of four, so I'm the third born
Okay.
out of four, and so I was born and raised there. Went to primary school, like just around.
Yeah.
Then for high school, I came to Kiambu County for high school.
Okay.
So that was
where exactly?
so I went to Alliance in Kiambu County.
Okay.
So that was a long, like the first time I was like leaving home to come to Nairobi was for school, which was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of more just general like brief from of where I'm from. Yeah.
Okay. That's good, man. What kind of kid would you say you are? At least
Oh,
now
wow.
you're a grown man, man. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you? Yeah.
I think I evolved a lot. I think I would
Okay.
say I had three phases.
Okay.
I think my early childhood phase was like how will I best describe it? I think it was kind of like the most traditional, so it was just like a normal kid. I enjoyed playing. I was a goalkeeper, so I enjoyed playing football a little bit. I was a goalkeeper for like the local primary school team.
Oh.
Then close to class 8, we were focusing a little bit on our studies, so we stopped playing
Yeah.
football. Then I think the second phase was in high school, where I think coming to high school, I was also really a big believer of the system. I think that's kind of how I've been raised to,
Okay.
kind of as like, follow the rules and work hard and kind of believe that that was how the world worked. When in high school, I was
Yeah.
like, really different, between a different crowd, things are different in the
Yeah.
ground. So I went through this phase where I wanted to be a writer.
Okay.
And at that time, Guigo the Young was like my life hero.
Role model. Yeah.
And he wrote
Yeah.
some of his early books when he was in high school, so I was just like, I'm following in his
Yeah. Is that why you
in
have
his
your?
footsteps.
Is that why you have your dreadlocks?
That is from another inspiration, which was Didan Kimathi.
I see.
Yeah, so that was also like around that time when I kind of, because I think at that point I wanted to become a lawyer. That was like my plan. When I got that point, I was like, I just wanted to be a writer, and yeah, and I think I just also became a little bit disillusioned with the entire like system and society. I think it just became also quite clear to me how at least Kenya as a country seemed to be really, like not the most straightforward country. Like you had to be also really like street smart to
Yeah.
get things happening. Yeah, and then I think the last phase was, I think, when I now realized that just being completely against the system is also not
Yeah.
helpful. So you kind of need to find a
Balance.
middle ground. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Well, at what age did you get your high school at Alliance?
So that was 2013 when I was 18. So
18. Yeah.
yeah. So when we finished high school, actually, me and two other friends, we made a promise never to go to university.
Oh, really?
Actually, two of us went, but one has still followed strong than that promise, which is the end.
Okay.
And so that was like our plan, because we were just like,
No going to university.
so that was the plan.
Why?
I think we at that point had done an assessment and realized that people who went to the university just became tools of like the system, and were not like we're not doing like innovative things to progress like society as a whole, but like kind of like maintaining the status quo.
Yeah.
And also all of the people who we really admired to a lot of extent either go to school or like had really negative views about it.
I see.
So in fact at that point I was admitted to UN, but I've actually never showed up to today. So I wonder what happened to the admission. But I was supposed to go to Parklands to study law.
Okay. So you actually did apply.
Well, you had to apply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was part of
Yeah, yeah,
the requirement.
yeah. And so what we did at that point was we started a few companies, most of which did not succeed.
Yeah.
But the one I think which we got most known for was Grincha. Yeah.
Yeah. So, just so you know, I know Tom will not blow his trumpet, so I'm gonna blow his trumpet. Yeah. So at 18, yeah, Tom and his friends, started a company, actually a social enterprise. It's called Grincha, and you were named the youngest recipient of Echoing Green Fellowship
Yeah.
at 18 years old. And you also were awarded the Women Deliver Social Entrepreneur Award in 2016 and the Amiza Prize Energy Award, amongst so many other awards. Something else now, a year later, at 19, Tom was named on the Forbes 30 under 30 list in social entrepreneurship, becoming the second youngest person to receive the honor. And Salt magazine also listed you as 30 under 30 social entrepreneur. I'm just trying to, I don't want to continue. But you have, like, for me, you've kind of achieved a lot at a young age, man. What was the drive? What was the motivation? Even now, as you tell us the story of how you started Grincha.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've always held close personally is I think I've always believed that if things are to happen, I have to make them happen. I think it's a function of my upbringing. I think kind of like the family I was raised in.
Yeah.
And I think from a really young age, I had to, really, work hard to make, opportunities for myself and to
Yeah.
kind of like trailblaze.
Mm.
And so I've kind of always just really embraced that frontier spirit,
Yeah.
of going in and making your own path and, failing 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Though those never get, people never get the award for those, but that's like, what happened most of the time.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so I think that is, that, and I think combined with just a general skepticism of like large existing or traditional ways of doing things, have always just like motivated me to want to make my own path. And I think, for example, I think that was like one of the reasons why, we didn't want to go to university, because we thought like that may kill that part of what we really strongly believed in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then that's when you started to. That's when you guys started Greencher.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
when we started.
What was Greencher doing and all that?
So actually, at that time, so when we were just leaving high school, we were working on three things, and actually, Grinch was the one which we thought had the least opportunity of success, just because it one like seemed to require the most expertise and resources. So
Yeah.
basically, the very idea was, and which is a story that I think most Kenyans really identify with, but like how, and especially in like rural settings, like the honest house, I was where I was born and raised, most families use like firewood, or mostly firewood to cook.
Yeah.
And I think there's all this overwhelming evidence, that the smoke from the firewood also leads to a lot of like respiratory tract infections.
Yeah.
And so for the longest time, my mom actually had a lot of like respiratory tract infections, primarily from like just using
Okay.
the smoke from
Firewood.
firewood.
Mm.
And it was something that for me was really interesting and important, because she was doing it not because she wanted to, but because she had to. And it was almost kind of like a self-sacrificing thing where she had to do it just to, like be able to make sure that the family is able to eat.
Mm.
And so, when I was in high school, I was asking myself, I have maybe 10, 11, 12 years of education.
Yeah.
And at least I should be able to solve at least one problem that is, personal and I care about.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like the original inspiration
Yeah.
around it. And so that's why I started working on with Ian and the guy called Brian
Yeah.
on the idea.
Greencher.
And so after high school, we decided to see if we could try and just get some funding for it, try to get it off the ground.
Mm.
And so that was the inspiration. So I worked on Granger for 2 years, from 2014 to 2.5 to 2016. And at that time, what we were doing is we were mainly focusing on building like clean cooking fuel for homes. So we're doing cooking fuel and cooking stoves,
Yeah.
because that is like like the segment that I cared the most about. So it was like
Yeah.
our original vision, and we did make a lot of progress like doing that. I think in 2016, for example, we had about like 10,000 homes we were selling to, and like a team of 25 people.
Yeah.
But at that point, we also realized that the organization was not going to work, because the profit margins were very low, because we were competing firewood, which people are getting for free, or charcoal, with people getting like
Yeah.
at a really low point. And so I think at that point, the organization and myself, we were at a juncture where we had to, really make really important decisions.
Yeah.
And one of those decisions that was made was for the organization to pivot to rather than focusing on homes, to be focusing on industries. So like
Okay.
supplying like tea factories and schools and things like that.
Mm.
And so I think also at that point we also made the decision that since I had spent 2.5 years trying to lead the organization towards this vision, it would have made sense for someone else to lead the organization towards kind of like a new vision. And so at that time, like I think Ian took over the running of the organization. It's nowadays 50 for mobile fuels just because it's more focused now on industrial
Yeah.
consumption. Yeah. And yeah, so that was like the story
Yeah.
with Green Tea.
Interesting. I like, there's something you mentioned, in terms of, you challenge yourself, the fact that you're in high school. I say, okay, at least I need to solve one problem. Instead to solve the problem of, coming up with the briskets, or clean energy, let's put it
Yeah.
that way. What would you, tell a young, there's a lot of young people, and entrepreneurship is budding in Africa, and specifically on, I'd like to pick your brain on that regarding coming up with solutions to problem as the best way to go for entrepreneurship. Yeah, because most people, when they hear business entrepreneurship, the first thing that comes to mind is money.
Yeah.
I want to get in and make money. I want to make profits, and I want to be, the next Bill Gates, or the next, what's his name? This Jeff Bezos, or it's just, the mindset is more towards the making the money than solving problems that exist. What would you say, especially to young entrepreneurs in Africa regarding that?
Yeah, so I think the thing is, if you look at all of these people, all these role models, they make money because they solve problems. I think that is the beginning. So even if the inspiration is to, be rich and build a big organization, a big company,
Yeah.
you have to begin, with solving a problem.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why I think it's important to solve a problem that is really close and heartfelt to someone is just because the reality of any enterprise is that it's 99% of the time like stress and frustration. And if like you're not solving a problem that you care about, you're going to give up. Like you're going to give up a little bit easier, right? And so I think my advice to young people is,
Yeah.
there is one or two problem. There has to be one problem that you care about.
Yeah.
If you can solve that problem for yourself, and you just extrapolate, you'll find there's other people like you who have a similar problem they want to solve.
Yeah.
And then you can ask yourself, how can I build something useful, right? But if you're just coming from the other way around, or you're trying to make money and then solve a problem, you're going to give up the first time you get a no, or like you have customers who don't pay you in time, or
Yeah.
like all these like difficulties happen. But one thing I normally tell people is to just look, like just around them, and just look at their lives, like the solutions that they want,
Yeah.
because there's just this like really common saying that those who are closest to the problem are closer to the solution, and I
Yeah.
think that's a really truthful saying. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to ask you a very, a little bit hard question. How much funding were you able to raise
At Greencher.
at Greencher?
Yeah, so I think at Greencher, when I was like still the person who was running Greencher,
Yeah.
we raised about $400,000
Yeah.
in our first 18 months, which I think was
that's 40 million shillings.
yeah, which I think was an exception rather than the norm.
Yeah.
So I think we.
How old were you then, man?
I was 19.
19.
Yeah.
Wow. Incredible.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. So I want to fast forward. So you left Greencher, because when we met in 2015, so interesting thing. I was 28 then, and we met with Tom in Amsterdam for this young entrepreneurs bootcamp. I think he was the real young entrepreneur then. Not me. No, but under 35, young.
Yeah.
And Tom was one of the team leaders. It's like, so this 19-year-old is leading all these, 20-year-old people. Yeah, but I thought, man, you are brilliant, you're amazing. I was like, I see why he's a leader. So you left Greencher, fast forward, and you got an opportunity to go to Harvard University. Yeah, to study psychology. How was that transition like? And like, how did the opportunity come? Like, did you apply? Like, how did that happen?
I think kind of getting towards 2016, I arrived at a point where it was a tough decision, but I think I personally arrived at a point where I knew that for Grinja to kind of get to the next level, it needed kind of like just a new leadership, or it needed
Okay.
like someone with like kind of a different level of skills and expertise than I had. And so I knew, kind of like as we were approaching going through our third year, that I was going to be transitioning out of the organization. And so at that point, I was starting to seek, kind of other things to do. And so I was pretty lucky that one of the people who were like on our board at Grinja had attended Harvard for his undergraduate degree.
I see.
And so he was like, maybe you should just consider
Yeah.
applying and see what happens. And so I had a few conversations with like the admission officer and the admission team at Harvard, and then they gave me a full ride, which was just a really good deal. I think across my 4 years was maybe about 35 million shillings in
Wow.
scholarships to go to Harvard.
Yeah.
And so I think it kind of just felt as a good place to also do another thing. I think, I had realized that, one thing is starting an organization, and being in a leadership or a place of responsibility so early in your life is both good and bad. I think it's bad to the extent that you don't spend a lot of time like introspecting and growing up, and really just getting to know yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think going to university for me at that point kind of felt like a good opportunity to also like spend some time, on myself. So I went in, originally I also didn't know what I was studying. So I think, but when I went in, initially I was studying economics because I thought it was like the most relevant.
You
to
actually studied economics first.
Yeah. So the good thing with Harvard is they just admit you to
Ah,
come to the school, so then you decide what you want to
I
study.
see. Okay.
Yeah, so I started with economics, and I did it for a year, and I didn't really like it because I just felt we're learning all of these like business concepts, but my experience was telling me they're so far removed from
The
the
reality.
realities on the ground, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't feel that was really useful. And then I started studying computer science, but I only did it for one semester because I wanted to learn coding, but I realized after learning coding, most of it was just theoretical and maths,
Yeah.
and so I didn't like that. And then I had this 1 year where I was actually studying English, and I was really happy when I was studying English because I was reading like maybe 20 books per week, and
Per week?
yeah,
Okay.
and reading about it and writing about it. The only funny thing is my mom will always be so confused because she'd
Oh,
be
yeah.
like,
You can speak English.
exactly,
And
yeah,
good English for that matter.
yeah, yeah.
Well, we just- Yeah.
And I was actually going to graduate, having studied English, had I not stumbled upon a psychology class. So to graduate also from Harvard, they have what they call general education. So you have to take a class from all of the academic departments to get a degree. So just to like fulfill the requirements for taking
Yeah.
a class in the psychology department,
Yeah.
I signed up for this class, and I was just really blown away. But I think what blew me away was most of these challenges that I had been struggling with at Grinja and I had thought were economic problems turn out to be psychology problems. Like, how do you convince people to
Yeah.
buy your product? How do you change behavior? How do you work with, new communities, or like even communities that you already exist in? So
Yeah.
that was kind of for me like the transition to studying psychology,
Yeah.
which I did for my last 1.5 years at Harvard. Yeah.
Wow. Interesting. I know now, you recently graduated and came back to Kenya, just last month, January.
Yeah.
And now you've started Chameleon Institute. I'd like to know, the vision of Shamiri, and because but just briefly, I mean, what is Chameleon Institute?
Yeah, great. Thanks so much for that question. So, Chameleon Institute, which is the new organization that I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
So we call ourselves a research and dissemination organization. So basically, what that means is we do research and build new products and then try to bring them to the communities that need them.
Yeah.
And our mission is to just develop tools that can help young people across Africa to really actualize their life outcomes. And I think the inspiration of that, comes, back to the story I was telling you earlier
Yeah.
of me having grown up in rural Kenya and just seeing that of all the people, most of the people I grew up with, most of them just never had opportunities or resources to go to high school, to get meaningful jobs, after becoming adults. And I think it's not because they were not smart enough or hardworking enough,
Yeah.
but sometimes life throws at you, different things.
Yeah.
And so, what we're trying to do at Shamiri is to see what these things that life throws at people are, and see if we can develop tools that can help people deal with them. And so right now, one thing that we are really focusing on is mental health. And that is just because right now, especially in Kenya,
Yeah.
you see the number of students in high schools as almost like, triple. So for example, when I joined Alliance, there were 200 students in my class.
Mm.
Recently when I went, there were 800 students in the same class, but they hadn't even built new classes or new dormitory. So the number of people in schools at high school is increasing. The number of going to universities is the same. The number of opportunities and jobs is still kind of the same. So there's all these psychosocial and societal pressure for young people, which already existed when I was going to school. It's just becoming more and more intense. And so we want to help young people really navigate that really difficult but important transitionary phase of their lives. Yeah.
Brilliant vision, man.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I like the vision, man. To be able to improve the life outcomes of young people, not just in Kenya, but from sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah.
I'd like to know what impact, like, you really, really want to leave. What mark do you want to leave, amongst the young people through Chameleon Institute? But before we do that, I'd like us to take a break, and then we're going to do that in part 2.
Okay.
As I told you, man, I hope I didn't promise heaven and deliver earth. Tom is a brilliant man. I love engaging with him. And this is Talk with Jayo. It's all about inspiring stories. We're gonna catch you in part 2.